If you've been watching What I Notice for a while, you know I'm not here to hand you conclusions. I'm here to think out loud, and today's thought is one that's been sitting with me for weeks. Here's what I've noticed. You don't need a psychology degree to read people. Not really. Give it a few minutes with someone and something in you just knows. This one's dominant. That one's a people pleaser. He's competitive, always measuring the room. She's detached, like she's watching her own life from a slight distance. This one gives too much and asks for nothing back. We do this without trying. No training, no manual, just quiet, instinctive pattern recognition. The kind we've probably been running since childhood, since the first time we had to figure out which adult was safe and which one wasn't. And what strikes me is that these patterns don't stay in childhood. They don't get left behind with the people who shaped them. They just keep showing up, decade after decade, relationship after relationship, dressed differently each time, but somehow always the same shape underneath. But that's not actually the part that keeps me up at night. Here's the part that does. If a people pleaser can see, clearly, that someone across from them is being controlling or taking advantage, why does the seeing not change anything? Why does the same person who can spot the pattern in an instant still say yes when they mean no? Still shrink in the same way? Still absorb the same weight they swore last time they wouldn't carry again? Awareness is there. That's what makes it strange. This isn't someone who doesn't know what's happening to them. They know. Sometimes they know better than anyone else in the room, and still the behavior doesn't move. Let me give you a few small scenes. Nothing dramatic, just things I think most of us have lived through in one form or another. A friend who notices, almost the moment it starts, that a colleague is steering credit toward himself in every meeting. She sees it happening in real time. She could name it out loud if someone asked her. And yet, when the moment comes to speak up, she says nothing, and later tells herself it wasn't worth the conflict. A man who has been in enough relationships to recognize, within the first few conversations, when someone is emotionally unavailable. He knows the signs before they even fully appear, and he still finds himself, months later, waiting by the phone, wondering why this one feels so familiar. A mother who understands, intellectually, that she doesn't need to earn her family's approval anymore. She could explain this to you clearly, calmly, like she's teaching a class on it. And she still finds herself rearranging her own plans the moment someone else's disappointment enters the room. Different lives, different stages, same quiet gap. The knowing and the doing, living in two separate rooms that never quite open into each other. So here's where my thinking has landed, at least for now. I don't think this is really about personality traits. Dominant, people pleaser, competitive, detached. These are just the labels we put on something much older and much less visible. I think what's actually running underneath is a kind of unconscious strategy. Somewhere early on, each of us figured out a way to feel safe, to feel accepted, to feel some sense of control in a world we didn't choose and couldn't fully understand yet. And that strategy got wired in before we had language for it, before we had any real choice in the matter.
That's why awareness alone doesn't undo it. The strategy was never built by logic, so logic alone can't dismantle it. It was built by a much younger version of us, trying to survive an environment where staying quiet, or staying in control, or staying agreeable felt like the only way through. And here's the part I find almost beautiful in a strange way. When two people meet, these old strategies don't just sit side by side, they interact. A person who learned to please fits, almost too easily, with a person who learned to take control. A person who learned to withdraw fits with a person who learned to chase. It's not random who we end up drawn to, again and again. It's like each strategy is a shape, looking for its matching groove. I don't say this to suggest we're trapped, or that we're doomed to repeat the same shape forever. I don't think that's true either. But I do think we underestimate how deep this goes. We treat awareness like it's the finish line. Once I see it, I've solved it. And maybe that's the quiet mistake. Seeing the pattern is the beginning of something, not the end of it. What actually closes that gap between knowing and changing, I honestly don't know. I have guesses. I think it has something to do with feeling safe enough in the moment itself to try a different response than the one that kept you safe as a child. But guesses are all I have here, and I'd rather sit with the honest, not knowing, than hand you a 5-step plan that pretends this is simple. If any of this sounds familiar, if you've caught yourself seeing a pattern clearly and still living inside it anyway, I don't think that means something is wrong with you. I think it might just mean the strategy is older than the awareness, and the awareness hasn't quite caught up yet. Maybe that's the actual work. Not just noticing the pattern, but slowly, patiently, teaching the part of you that built the strategy that it doesn't need it anymore. That it's allowed to try something else, even if the old shape still feels safer. I don't have a neat ending for this one. I don't think it deserves one. If you want to understand more about where these strategies actually come from, the mechanics of how they form and why they're so sticky, that's exactly what we get into over on Mind and Meaning. This channel sits with the question. That one explains the machinery underneath it. I'd love to know if this is something you've noticed in your own life too. The moment you saw a pattern clearly and still couldn't quite step out of it. Leave it in the comments if you're comfortable sharing. Sometimes just knowing you're not the only one who's felt this is enough to loosen its grip, even a little. I'll see you in the next one.